It's the sequel that no one asked for. It's the sequel that, when it was announced, I, like many others, took a big, deep breath in of fear and trepidation. It's the sequel to Ridley Scott's epic, Oscar-winning 2000 Gladiator. And it's got no bloody business being this bloody good.
I remember that day. I never forgot it. That a slave could take revenge against an emperor.
Gladiator 2 picks up 16 years after the events of the first movie. There's some opening text explanation that kind of fills in the blanks of everything that happened between now and then. Well, not quite everything, but I'll touch on that later. Pedro Pascal's General Acacius? Anyway, Pedro Pascal's general character for the Roman army is battling to conquer the homeland of Paul Mescal's character. He succeeds in doing this, although with a heavy heart at the loss of life on both sides. Mescal becomes a slave for Denzel Washington's character, whose name escapes me. I think it was Marcinius. Anyway, Paul Mescal becomes a slave for Denzel. He then becomes a gladiator for Denzel. Denzel sees this as an opportunity to curry favour with the twin emperors of Rome, played by Joseph Quinn and Fred Heschinger, while Mescal sees this as an opportunity to get revenge. And, that's pretty much it, plot-wise. I won't say too much more for fear of spoilers, although the trailer totally, maps out 80% of the movie, but more on that later. So Paul Mescal is Russell Crowe, Denzel Washington is Oliver Reed, Joseph Quinn and Fred Heschinger, apologies for the pronunciation if I'm getting that wrong, they are Joaquin Phoenix, and off we go. So far, so Gladiator 1. So it very much follows the blueprint of the first movie, for better or for worse. Well, for better and for worse, I should say, but I'll explain that later as well. Quick shout out to Cineworld here in Glasgow. I got tickets to what I think they billed as the regional premiere of this movie. Basically, we got to see it in the big IMAX at Glasgow Silverburn, which is a cracking big screen. It looks great, it sounds great. It's Scotland's only laser IMAX screen, I think. Yeah, looks great, sounds great. The regional premiere is basically you get to watch the movie, but before the movie you get to watch, I think it's live feed from the red carpet event premiere, where you've got Alex Zane on the red carpet at the event interviewing, Paul Mescal, Denzel, Ridley Scott, etc. So that was pretty cool. Thanks very much to Cineworld for that. So what's good about Gladiator 2? What did I like about it? The acting, first of all. Across the board, the acting is great. Washington, Mescal, Pascal, they're all top of their game. I think this movie, following on from Normal People and All of Its Strangers and Aftersun, I think this will catapult Paul Mescal to the next level of movie stardom. It'll be really interesting to see what the next few years is like for him, to see what movies he ends up doing or what TV shows, or it'll be interesting to see what he does in the next few years. What else did I like? The action scenes are understandably and expectingly epic. It is a Ridley Scott swords and sandals movie after all. But yeah, the guy knows how to direct epic action scenes. There's a lot in the trailers, so, I don't feel it's a spoiler to talk about a few scenes, like the water scene in the Colosseum, of which there's controversy whether or not that did or didn't happen. I don't think it matters. This is a fictional story. Whether they did or they didn't doesn't really affect your enjoyment of the movie, or it shouldn't affect the enjoyment of the movie. So whether they did have water and sharks in the Colosseum or not, it doesn't matter. It's a movie. Just enjoy it for what it is. One of my favourite scenes in the movie actually is near the start. It's a fight scene in one of the Colosseums, or one of the smaller, fighting arenas, where the Pascal and his slave / gladiator buddies are fighting a bunch of, I think it's like feral monkeys on steroids. CGI aside, that's a really good scene. The action of that, the fight scene in that, it's quite brutal and visceral, and it really, actually surprisingly, helps you get into the head of Paul Mescal's character, and you really feel his rage at the world and at his situation, and that kind of comes through with that fight scene. There's no dialogue, but the fight scene kind of takes you through that gamut of emotions and rage, and that played really well. The script by David Scarpa does a pretty good job, for the most part, of telling a new story, but connecting to the original enough to make it, a sequel. Likewise, the dialogue, for the most part, is on point. Denzel is gifted the lion's share of the scene-stealing and chewing lines, but, it's Denzel. He could make anything sound great. Tone-wise, pace-wise, pretty on point as well, I would say. It's 2.5 hours long, or about 2.5 hours long, but it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel too long. It doesn't feel too slow, and there's no awkward tone shifts at any point that kind of like distract you from the story or take you out of the movie. So tone-wise, pace-wise, length-wise, yeah, on point. CGI, as I said, other than that monkey scene at the start or near the start of the movie, I think the CGI is fairly flawless. So, that's always good. Trailer. Let's talk about the trailer. Too often these days, movies give away far too much in the trailer. I think more often than not, that tends to be the case. And it's almost true for Gladiator 2 as well. There was like a 3-minute trailer that was released a few months ago, 3, 4, 5 months ago, a full 3 minutes and 10 seconds trailer that pretty much beat for beat goes through the first 4/5 of the movie and shows you what's going to happen. You connect the dots. It's fairly easy to see, oh yeah, okay, I feel like I've just seen most of the movie in that trailer. It looks good, but you're giving away too much. I get that movie studios and the marketing agencies have got a job to do. They need to get bums in seats. They need to get people to pay to come and see the movie. That's how the business works. One of the ways they do that is with trailers and TV spots, etc. But they're giving away too much. The score. There's no Hans Zimmer here for Gladiator 2. We've got Harry Gregson Williams, who actually started out as an assistant for Hans Zimmer on composer duties for Gladiator 2. And while Harry Gregson Williams is an amazingly accomplished composer in his own right, Zimmer's score for the first Gladiator movie is one of the best of all time. It's genuinely one of my favourites. I can't listen to Now We Are Free without welling up, without literally crying. As soon as it gets to the 4th or 5th note at the waterworks have started, I cannot not cry when I'm listening to that. It's such an emotional, resonant, beautiful piece of film music. So yeah, when I heard it wasn't Hans Zimmer doing the score for the sequel, I was pretty gutted, as I said, even though Harry Gregson Williams is a really good composer as well. Zimmer actually said in an interview for Curzon by Amon Warman that he didn't do Gladiator 2 because he didn't want to repeat himself. He'd already done sequels with the Batman movies and then with the Pirates movies. He didn't want to continue repeating himself with sequels, so he chose not to do Gladiator 2. I'm going to read a quote from that interview directly from Hans Zimmer. He says, "Gladiator takes a special place in my heart. I think it's completely undisciplined. It wouldn't have mattered if I had written the most amazing score because the music in the first movie sticks in people's hearts." And I think that's very true. Now, I think he could have easily came back and done an epic score as well, but you have to respect him for not wanting to mess with what is one of the best scores of all time. He says it sticks in people's hearts. It absolutely sticks in people's hearts. The cinematography is beautiful. It's got a bit of a digital look to it as opposed to film. I don't know whether that was just me, whether that was the screen, or whether it was shot on digital as opposed to being shot on film. But it did look great. It was crisp, clear, but it still retained some grittiness, the sweat and the dirt on people, the baking sunlight of the Roman Colosseum, the water. It looked great. It sounded great. There's a couple of scenes that are in black and white, or kind of like silver and white would be maybe a better way to describe it. But yeah, they looked amazing. But like I said, I saw it at a Laser IMAX, which is I think it's the best screen in Scotland to see movies. It's really great. It's a big, bright, beautiful screen. So yeah, cinematography for Gladiator 2, very good. As I said earlier, it follows the blueprint of Gladiator 1 fairly closely, and that's both a blessing and a curse. If you're going to follow the blueprint of a movie, yep, sure, follow the blueprint of one of the best movies ever made, an Oscar-winning Swords and Sandals epic from, the year 2000. Why not follow that blueprint? That's a very good blueprint. However, if you do that, it's obviously going to invite comparisons, both in terms of story and in terms of acting and actors. Paul Mescal is no Russell Crowe, but I don't think he's trying to be Russell Crowe. He's playing a different character. Again, not going to go into too much details for spoilery reasons, but there are times where it feels like his character is trying to step into the shoes or step into the armour of a different character. And I think they play up to that, both in terms of the way the film is shot, both in terms of the costume itself. It looks like it fits differently. And I don't think that's an accident. I think that's something that the filmmakers, that Ridley Scott and Paul Mescal, have done on purpose to, you know, not hide away from the fact that this isn't Russell Crowe, but to emphasise the fact this isn't Russell Crowe and this isn't Maximus. This is Paul Mescal and a different character. So I think they walked that line very well. My only kind of negative is I would have liked a little bit more text explanation at the start to detail what happened in the 16 years between the first movie and the second movie. Like, I'm just curious, how did the two ginger twin emperors rise to power? Like, I want to know that part of the story, which isn't explained in the movie. Maybe it's part of true Roman history, and you can look that up, but I don't want to look up Roman history. I want to watch a movie. Bit of a random thing here. Something that my partner brought up after we watched the movie was that while she enjoyed the movie, she enjoyed Gladiator 2, she did feel like she was cheating on Gladiator 1 by enjoying it that much. She felt like she shouldn't be allowed to enjoy it for some reason. She couldn't really articulate it beyond that, but I thought that was a really interesting way to phrase it, and it got me thinking, like, can you enjoy a sequel independent of the original, or can you enjoy a sequel without it affecting your enjoyment or your memory of the first movie? Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on that. Does a sequel, good or bad, affect how much you enjoy the first movie? Do you feel like you're cheating on the first movie? And while you're at it, if you like this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more content like this, you can always subscribe. Thank you. So I'm going to go with a solid 8 out of 10 for Gladiator 2. For context, Gladiator 1 is a solid 9, maybe even 10 out of 10. But yeah, Gladiator 2 would be an 8 out of 10. It was never going to eclipse the original movie, but I don't think anyone is expecting it to. It's a good enough movie on its own to warrant your time and your money, especially if you enjoyed the first movie. I do think this is a good continuation of that overall world and the overall story and some of those characters. So yeah, check it out. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video.